Now we're going to shift gears a little bit and share where the organization is going and what our role can be in that journey. I'd like to next invite on stage LEANN Pope, who has been the chair of our board of directors since 2020 and has been a member of the board since 2015. After 30 years as an attorney with the Chicago law firm Burke, Warren, McKay, and Saratella, LEANN heard and answered her calling and retired to pursue a Master of Theology degree from Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary at Northwestern University, which she completed in 2020. In addition to her deep commitment to opportunity, LEANN works with CRED, a nonprofit dedicated to reducing gun violence in Chicago. And she also serves on the Board of Trustees of Carthage College. Please welcome LEANN Pope.
Thank you, Carol, and good morning, everyone. 3 years ago, Atul and his team presented an ambitious and brave strategic plan to the board. The plan was to go deeper in the poverty pyramid to reach those living in extreme poverty, people living on less than $1.90 a day. Now, a plan to go where very few organizations will go, as Atul calls it, the last frontier, which it is. It requires new innovations, courage, patience, and lots of funding. So as a result, in 2019, we launched the Waymakers campaign, a 3-year campaign to raise $100 million and reach 25 million more people. Now, when our very talented Vice President of Marketing, Laura DeGrange, first presented the Waymaker campaign to the board during a meeting, I loved it. I loved it. Because when I heard the word Waymaker, I saw so many different images in my mind. I saw the women that I met in Africa, in India, who have made a way out of no way to support their families. I saw my fellow board members sitting around the boardroom, their faces telling me that they will not sit still. They will help end extreme poverty in our lifetime. And they have used their time, talent, and yes, their deep, deep treasures to get the work done. But what we didn't know at that time, when the Waymaker campaign was first presented to us, that the word Waymaker actually was going to be prophetic. Because within months of approving the plan to start the Waymaker campaign, the pandemic hit. The lives of our staff and clients were turned upside down. Now, faced with such uncertainty, it would have been understandable for Atul and his team to take a pause until we all understood the depth and scope of COVID-19. But that's not what happened. Our team doubled down. And under Atul's astute crisis management leadership, the staff sailed directly into the headwinds of these times. So now, when I think of the word Waymaker, I think of our staff. Our staff are Waymakers. They are the ones that are made for moments like this. They are problem solvers, action takers, and they are not afraid of taking the road less traveled. So at this point, I would like to introduce all of you to 4 other people who define the word Waymaker. The co-chairs for our Waymaker campaign, Mary Lynn and Warren Staley, Beth and Joel Johnson. The 4 of you had the courage in the middle of a pandemic to say yes, to be the co-chairs of this campaign. And as a result, we have raised to date $78 million. So now will you all welcome to the stage our fabulous co-chairs. Thank you.
We're here and it hasn't been easy. We want to thank particularly Beth for joining us because she, with Joel's assistance, have overcome all kinds of odds to get here. And we show up at opportunity, right? I want to also thank you and give you congratulations because all of you here in this room have put aside the noise of your lives and have created a little time and space to think of others. That's so important, that thinking of others through the lens of opportunity. And we are talking about opportunity. And the thing about opportunity is there's not just one thing with opportunity. If you ask people why they support opportunity, you will get as many answers as the people you ask. If you ask me, it's like choosing my favorite child. I get the answer of the moment. And there is one thing that comes to my thought process when I think of opportunity. And the interesting thing is, you've just heard 4 people talk about it. We've been involved in opportunity for 20 years plus. We've traveled, we've gone on insight trips, we've been involved in fundraising, in leadership roles, and through all of that time, we've seen incredible change, growth, and outstanding innovation all over the world. When it comes down to it, what came to my mind is how could all of this happen if it weren't for the staff, the people they hire, that then goes down to the local level and the people they hire. Amazing, amazing. In this day and age of pandemic alone, think of the leadership that was required to pivot, to keep the people on the ground whole, to keep the bankers that were giving them loans whole, to keep the opportunity and international staff whole amidst it all. Okay, and then we go back over 50 years, and we have all of the ups and downs of the financial world. We have innovations that we talked about that were outstanding, but the rest of the world then caught on, so we pivoted to other ideas and ways to go deeper. Financial, we had banks. We sold the idea. We pivoted, we partnered with banks. And through all of this, the organization has been able to hire incredible market talent leadership. Now, to me, that is amazing. 50 years of it. You saw some of it at the top, but you haven't been on the ground, all of you, in every country, nor have I, to see that it goes way deep. Sometimes this isn't talked about, but when you look over the journey of 50 years, it becomes very apparent. So that's what I'm holding into my heart as a reason that we still support opportunity. Warren, what would you say your reason might be today?
Well, quite some years even before I was introduced to Opportunity International, I felt that for a person to have a good life, a reasonable life, they needed 3 things. An education, a safe, affordable place to live, and a job. And for those that didn't have those three, they were very great risk of living in poverty. I had traveled a lot with Mary Lynn around the world. We had observed poverty in many places at different levels, and we were trying to understand it and thinking about what can we do about poverty. And importantly, we discovered what worked and what didn't work. And there were a lot of things that didn't work. So we were looking for an organization, people that had a sense of how this all worked. We were introduced to opportunity by the McRae's, Polly and Bob, as Mary Lynn said, about 20 years ago. We started attending events and hearing about opportunities approach to alleviating poverty. But in my case, it wasn't until I went on an inside trip that I really understood and saw on the ground, how does this work? As a business person, I knew and I know today that it's wonderful. You need a good idea, you need a strategy, but if you don't know how to execute it, it isn't worth anything. It is all about execution. Success comes, yes, from a good idea, but 90% is about executing. I've seen in many businesses strategies that were good, they weren't executed well, they didn't work. Somebody else came along and figured out how to execute it, and it worked wonderfully. Mm-hmm. So we were very, very pleased to see that Opportunity had a good idea about how to alleviate poverty, but they were also out there in the world, on the ground, and figuring out how it worked. And as you heard this morning, sometimes the things you try don't work, you pivot. It doesn't mean you give up. And it takes a team, because one leader by themselves, and we've seen many examples of this in the world, where they think they have all the answers and go headlong and do not pivot, it's a failure. So you need a good team around you. And we observed that there were teams everywhere we went with Opportunity International at the local level, and helping to understand what it was going to take in their country. I also really liked it that this was all rooted in a philosophy that everyone is valued, that everyone in the world makes a difference and is important. I also agree with you, Mary Lynn, on the idea that it takes really great leaders. I also have confidence in Opportunity, in the leaders, that they have the ability to design programs that work and know how to implement them around the world. They have a very long history of developing programs and delivering them to people in great need. For example, whether it's in the area of building capacity for teachers, as Andrew's doing, Nathan did before him, and as Tim is doing in agriculture. And it also is a matter of building a better supply chain in agriculture to help farmers. And we're seeing that right now, and the challenges I think Opportunity is going to have. I'm looking forward to spending some more time with Tim and hearing from him with the after effect of what's happening in Ukraine and Russia, which is a breadbasket and helping a lot of the world. That is not going to happen. I don't know if the crops are going to get planted in the next few weeks, for example, in the Ukraine and in Russia. And so it's going to be a great task to help out locally to provide for themselves. Joel, what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to pass it right away to my wife, Beth, because she's the one who introduced us to Opportunity.
Okay, that's true. I got involved with Opportunity about 12 years ago. And the way I got involved was really fun. Joel and I went to a fundraising dinner for a nonprofit in our area, a theater group actually. And I was, seated next to a young woman named Cindy. And I turned to her and I said, well, what do you do for work? And she said, well, I'm in microfinance. And my ears perked up because our younger son, Peter, who was 23 at the time, was interested in working in developing countries. And so I thought, well, I'll find out more about microfinance for him. So Cindy brought over a representative, I think from Kenya, to our home to explain how the process of the loans work, and it all sounded very impressive. So for the next 2 years, we were active, we were giving money, and finally in maybe April or May 2012, Cindy, our opportunity development person in our area, said, you know what, we're gonna have an inside trip to Uganda. Why don't you sign up? And I was like, oh no, I never could, handle that. I'm just, no, too much for me. Oh, come on. She kept urging me, you'll love it, you'll love it. And finally she said, we could stay a few extra days and take a gorilla viewing trip. Lost the name of it. But, and I love animals, so I thought, well, and then I realized, I have 3 or 4 months. The trip was planned for August. I couldn't get in condition for it. So I decided to go. And then I reached out to our son, Peter, and asked him if he'd like to go. And he said yes, and would get the time off from work. And then I turned to Joel, and I said, are you going to join us? And he said, maybe not. I have other things on my calendar. So I said, well, I'm going anyway. Whether you come or not, I'm going. And so over the next couple of weeks, he was talking to our older kids, telling them that, well, your mom signed up to go to Uganda for 10 days and then go on a gorilla trek. And our older 2 kids shamed him. They said, Dad, you're letting our mother go to Africa and you're not going with her?
True.
So he came.
Yeah.
And that's the beginning of the rest of the story.
It is. So I backed in. But I came back from that trip really a changed person. I had never seen poverty like we saw in Uganda, especially in rural Uganda. $1.90 a day means that you cook over an open flame. It means that you gather your own wood to cook over. It means you have a dirt floor in a mud hut. It means you don't have a door in your hut. You either have a rug or a blanket or a towel hanging down. And I saw how hard the people worked to elevate themselves from that poverty. How they worked with very little mechanized equipment. It was manual labor, all agricultural. And I saw also, as juxtaposed to this great need, I saw opportunity as an effective vehicle. I saw really committed people in the field. I saw the loan groups, the trust groups, making loans, getting repayments. I saw people helping themselves out of poverty. And we ventured into some successful organizations where people were succeeding. They were building businesses. They were building their farms. They were increasing their yields in those farms. So I came back really feeling that in opportunity, like in business, if you have a clear need, and the need is undeniable, and you have a vehicle that works to satisfy that need, every instinct in my aggressive, ambitious body says, okay, let's throw the fuel against this. Let's support this because there's a need there and it works. So when we were approached to lead this capital campaign of $100 million, I saw it as a vehicle to generate that fuel that we can apply to the success. It's just undeniable that this is an effective organization and we need to pursue all these initiatives.
Certainly true. And I consider the threads between all of these things it's not only the power of the work, It's the people behind the work, the people who do it, the people who impress you with what they have accomplished via the vehicle that's being offered. And we've been asked to give a who behind the why. And as we are told, there might be an opportunity for you to all participate in this as well while we give a couple of examples. There is supposed to be something on the screen called Slido that gives some instructions on how to follow this. And if it comes up, you get to do it. And if you don't, in all of the sessions around, be sure and share with each other your who's behind opportunity. I'm going to give you just one of mine. I am very, very much behind the edu-finance arena right now because I've been an educator and I've been supporting education throughout my career. And I trust to heaven and earth the leadership, Nathan Bird, who handed it over to Andrew McCusker, who's here with us today, and we'll tell you more about that. And my person, my most recent was visited on a trip to Ghana 5 months ago when I was taken to a school, very rough on one part, and then you could see where they got an opportunity loan on the second part, and it started getting to be a nicer and nicer school. But that's not the story that I want to tell you. The story is that this entrepreneur of a man wanted to start a school, had it in his heart, had a message. And he started with one student. Who does that? And he had to go to the person's house and pick him up. And he had to wait till that child got bathed before he was presentable enough to be with him to learn. One student. That was 20 years ago and before opportunity loans. This man now has not only increased his school size to accept more students, but he's also been the benefactor of the Edu Quality program. And so the learning in this school has gone up and up and up. The standards of hiring, the training of teachers, all of the things that are support services that we're offering have been accepted by them. And now 300 plus students a year get educated in Ghana through that one little neighborhood school and that man who started a school with one student. These are opportunity clients. They are world-notch clients. What about you, Warren? What's your story?
Well, I have a lot, but one in particular early on. I understand.
One and really short.
We were in Uganda, Rwanda on a insight trip, and we were visiting with a group of people in a trust group, and this one woman was very happy, ecstatic almost. She had a $95 loan, which of course we can't imagine. What do you do with a $95 loan? And what it allowed her to do, which was to get up between 4 and 4:30 in the morning. She'd walk, I don't know how far, the village to get the raw materials to make the food product that she was going to take to sell in the village later in the day. She'd get her children up, get them ready for school. She'd get her food ready on her head, walk, drop the kids off at school, sold her goods, picked them up, went home, helped them out, put them to bed, and worked and went to bed between 11 and 12 at night and got up again the next day at 4 in the morning and did this over. And I'm saying, how can you be happy about this? Because for me, this was in the life's not fair category to work that hard. So I asked her, I said, what motivates you to do this? And her answer was the same as most women I asked across Africa, so my children can have an education.
Yeah. How about you?
Well, my who is a plural. First of all, the staff of OI, as many of you have mentioned, but particularly the model that OI has is to present what in social work we call wrap around services. So there are lots of microfinance organizations that just give money. And I've even heard some of their management say, well, we think it would be insulting to try to tell our clients what they should do with the money. They know what they should do. Well, they do know what they want to do with the money, but they don't have all the skills they need. And these people are not just creating one job for themselves, they're creating a business that will employ others. So the wraparound services, they learn how to create a budget plan, a business plan, and keep a budget, how to hire and supervise employees. And so that's the staff who provide the wraparound services. I'm also humbly, amazingly impressed by the clients who can catch a vision for their lives in the midst of the poverty that they're living. If you lived in a one-room hut with a mud floor and a leaky roof, could you really, really believe that you could have something else? In our country, I think when people are in poverty, they get very discouraged. That's very common. So I think that the ability to catch that vision. And the last thing that has been impressive to me is the spiritual depth of our clients. It's never been a requirement of opportunity that our clients be involved in any kind of religious practice. Many of them are, however, and they have a deep sense of God's presence with them every day, lifting them up and moving them toward that vision.
My answer to the who is easy to answer and very specific. When we were in Uganda, we were visiting a rural school, and the young kids, they hadn't seen very many white people, and they had this white kind of dust, chalky substance on their roads, and they were picking this up and smearing it on their faces, so they look white like us. They were having fun, and one little boy got a lot of it, and he put it across his chin to mirror my mustache, and we kind of palled around together today. Now, I also need to tell you that the staff had been telling us explicitly over and over again, you're going to be solicited, people are going to beg for things. We don't do it. You can't give any, respond to the begging because it's inconsistent with opportunity, which is hand up, not hand out. And besides, if you give it to one, there's going to be a line of 50, and we're not going to get anything done. So at the end of the day, this young man, I don't know if the picture's out. Yeah, it is. He's the guy with the yellow shirt. He said, "Mister, if you give me $10, I can go to school next semester." And I didn't slip him the $10. And the truth is, that has weighed on my soul, and it's cost me millions.
Okay. Thank you so much for your stories. We all have them, all of you who've worked with anyone in opportunity here, there, around the world, will have a bucket load of stories. And thank you for sharing them with us. And thank you for anyone who did use the Slido opportunity to add your stories to ours. And I want you to know that this is a Waymaker campaign. We're sitting here as heads of the Waymaker, figurative heads, because it's all of us. When I think of Waymakers, I think of all of us. It takes every one of us putting in financial resources, bringing others to the organization so it's not the best kept secret, and so that our ranks can increase and our funding can increase to do more and more work to meet the 250, continuing higher numbers of people we're impacting in each arena that we work in. So thank you for what you do. Thank you for giving us more than enough time to tell you what we do. And God bless you all.
Thank you.